All right, Ryan, we're back. We got the snafu figured out here. Where you left off, so you're talking a little bit about how you approach competition and all the training that goes into to 6 attempts. So at this stage of your career, like I'm much older than you are, but at this stage in your career, is it more about just the personal like intrinsic motivation about continuing to compete, or is there like something else that just stokes the fire when it comes to this for you?
So I've never talked about this on a podcast before either. I am extrinsically motivated. Is that the correct term? I'm extremely motivated
Sure.
but to Olympic lift.
Sure.
I obviously enjoy it for myself to be athletic and to be competitive. Like I said, I have this competitive nature in me, and there really is nothing else that is kind of fulfilling that for me. But a quick little story. I remember early on in my career, I was watching one of my teams compete in their sport. And as I'm watching them, I'm like paying attention, but I'm kind of not, because I'm thinking about weightlifting and something.
Sure.
And this thought crosses my mind, and I'm looking at my athletes and I go, I have to always be stronger than all of you. Like that was just the thought that I had. And ever since that day,
Right.
I've been like, let's go. Like, so part of what does it for me is obviously competitive nature, and maybe that's the internal factor, but the external side of it is like, I want to always compete with my athletes.
Sure.
I always want to be stronger than them. And I want to be trying to hit a podium number. And but also I have these little rivalries in my head about other lifters, and they're in my head. Like they don't know that I'm trying to beat them, but like I want to beat them. So yeah, a lot of that drive is external. But my mindset is a little different. And we talked about competing and being at this high level, and I haven't really been on the podium since 2018. And I think because I talked about it before, for me, I've turned into, hey, there's no professional weightlifting for you at this. So you better make the most out of your career. And so as I've gotten older, I'm like, hey, I should probably like really prioritize where I'm headed in my career life versus my training life. And that's been a hard thing for me to wrap my mind around. At the end of the day, I understand like it is just a hobby for me at this in time. And, I've gotten older. And so some days I'm like, my body really doesn't like that today, or you know what I mean? So I think it's the focus has switched a little bit, but I'm still very competitive and want to do it.
I mean, it's just interesting because as like if I'm nowhere near as strong as my kids are now, so I'm glad I'm not maybe not as competitive as you are when it comes to that. But when you're preparing for these competitions and you're getting ready, like do you ever think like, if I had not like a 9-to-5 desk job, but like if I had, I don't know, if I wasn't on my feet 12 to 14 hours a day, like that the numbers might be a little higher? Like, does that thought ever cross your mind of like, maybe, getting up at 5 a.m. every day or 6 a.m. and staying up till, well, I have you here till 9:30 already. So like, does that ever like, creep in there, or is it just, you just go and that's how it goes?
I think I think of it the opposite way. So I've known weightlifting without being a strength and conditioning coach. So first competition, I was at the University of Kentucky. I was already starting my career. So I don't know what it's like to not have that. The thing that I always think about and remind myself of is like, give yourself a pat on the back for all of the stuff that you've accomplished, because you're doing it while also maintaining this great career. And you're competing against people that this is their job.
I was gonna ask you that. Yeah.
I always have to remind myself, like they are training for work, right? That's work. Whereas I am just supplementing it in my day.
Right.
So I'm very hard on myself. And so sometimes I just have to take a step back and be like, no, you're doing great for what you are able to do, because there are people that are training just to train, and that is all
Right.
they're doing. That's who you're competing against. So don't be so upset if you didn't take a gold medal from them, because they probably should have it.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that I'm in a weight room all the time actually really helps, because I don't know that 9 to 5, like I would have to train either before the 9 or after the
Right. Right.
But whenever I have some downtime, like I can just switch clothes and run out to the floor.
Sure.
So it's been really convenient.
So with that, like just like wearing all these different hats that you wear, like when you started at Clemson, I mean, that's a major ACC, college, national champion football program, and you walk into their weight room, and does it, I don't want to say like inspire you, but like, is it like, wow, like I'm in Clemson now? Like I started at Oshkosh and now I'm at like one of the top, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, colleges in the whole country. Like, do you ever stop and think about that?
So I go back to how naive I was starting out, because when I emailed Kentucky for an internship, I had no idea that they were a Power 5 school in the SEC. I didn't even know what that meant, because I was only ever exposed to Division III athletics. And you like watch these schools on TV, and even before I knew about Kentucky, like they had a TV show about their cheer team. And I don't know if you knew that, but like,
no, I didn't know.
Yeah. They had a reality show about their cheer team, and I ended up getting to work with cheer. So like that was something really cool for me, because I grew up watching it. And so when I got my position at Clemson, one of the things that I said to myself early on was, don't ever take for granted seeing the paw. Like, don't get bored of the fact that you work at the school with the orange paw, right? Like I always wanted that to be something that was exciting for me and that could always ground me, because I think a lot of times people go to these divisions or to these schools or to these logos because they want the notoriety that comes with that school, or puff their chest out a little bit or whatever it is. It wasn't about that for me. It was just I got to work with these really awesome athletes that just so happened to be at this really cool university.
Right.
Now at Tennessee, like I get to do that again, and I get to do it in the SEC this time. So it's almost like it's full circle for me from where it started to where it is now. And so that's like it's really cool for me to sit back and like kind of see how all of that happened.
Yeah, I mean, those shades of orange suit you well, right? So
everyone's like, oh, you must really love orange.
All right.
Sure.
Maybe the next stop might be at Texas with that burnt orange, right?
You never know what is in the cards.
Right.
Used to say.
But so like you're at Clemson and you're working with soccer and softball. Like, I mean, these athletes are like the top 1% in the United States for what they do. And you're charged with kind of, molding, developing these athletes to stay on the pitch and to be safe and healthy and things like, but besides the weightlifting portion of it, like how, for me, for example, like my athletes share things with me that they probably wouldn't ever share with anybody else. And sometimes it takes a semester, sometimes it's like the first week. In your role in strength and conditioning there, like you spend a lot of time in the off season, probably more time with the athletes than the actual coaches do. Like, how are you able to like balance that or kind of, keep the coach hat versus, I'm the counselor today or mom, or like how do you like kind of navigate those waters, if you will?
So very early on coaching career at Kentucky, I got very close to the head football strength and conditioning coach at Kentucky, because I did work Kentucky football only for a little bit. But even before then, I'm as much as I said earlier that I am very introverted at work, I'm very extroverted. I'm very much social butterfly. I will go to to, the athletic training room, the dietitians, the football, like I want to build relationships with people. So I did that at Kentucky, and I would go over football a lot. Corey Edmond is his name. He taught very early on the art of knowing when to hug an athlete is when to push an athlete. And that was a really valuable lesson for me as a young coach, because like you mentioned, there are times where you have to be giving an ear to listen, but there are times when you have to be like, no, get your butt in gear, get out of my office and go do that. Like, you have to know situations of when to push and when to hug. And he was someone that was really instrumental in helping me understand stuff like that. Because like you mentioned, you as a strength and conditioning coach are with those athletes so much more because you're allowed to be, but you're the bridge between the athlete and the coach. And there is a very fine line between athletes having enough confidence and trust in you to come to you, but also knowing what information to sift through and dissect and then relay to the coaches, so that they are in the know, but also not breaking the confidentiality of the athlete. So that's an art. And I think a lot of people need to know how to do that, because you are in a position where that's a skill that you need to have.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's something like it just was interesting when I went through the USA level 1 and level 2 coaching. I asked at the level 2, I was like, is there anything on like interpersonal relationships, or like you maybe at this level you're expected to start developing, maybe higher caliber athletes. And my research in regards to coach athlete relationships, I mean, that's the key, right? Especially with throwing, like all these Olympic coaches is basically like, once you have the kids hooked, that's the conduit to get them to that next level. And I was just kind of surprised that there really wasn't much like discussed in those 2 days that we spent there. But in your internship program that you were kind of spearheading at Clemson, do you spend any time with your new interns that come in of, this is when you hug an athlete, this is when you push an athlete? Or is that like, do they watch that happen? And then you kind of like dissect it as you go?
Yeah, not so much like it's like a lesson that we have set up where it's like, here are the things that you do and here are the things that you don't do. But it is more so when a situation comes up, and that's a learning opportunity. And one that comes to mind for me in particular is when I was at Clemson, the softball program, and they still are doing awesome things. They're still getting notoriety, but very early on, they were really great really early. And there's a standout athlete on that team. She walked in the weight room one day and one of the interns was like, there's the stud, blah, 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 and like yelling to this athlete. And I pulled that intern in after and I said, hey, I appreciate that you acknowledge that she's really good at what she's doing. She is not the type of person that wants the acknowledgement in front of a lot of people. So next time you see her, be a bit more discreet.
Sure.
So it's moments like that you can take to teach them, and maybe they make a mistake in the moment, but take them aside so that they don't repeat it.
Right.
So nothing outlined, but definitely learning opportunities as they arise.
I was going to ask about, I got all these questions here for you. So I'll try and go a little faster, but working at these high level programs, Kentucky, VCU, Clemson, now you're at Tennessee, is there like, when you step into those universities, is there somebody above you that's like, okay, like you're not, I don't want to say like you're going to ask for autographs, or like you're going to go like, hey, can I meet Dabo Sweeney or something like that? Like, is there a part of like that indoctrination that I pronounced that wrong? Sorry. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So are there others on campus that are like, hey, listen, like this is your like position, like you don't like ask for autographs or try and do things of that nature? I know it's probably a weird question, but I just like curious, like what that is like.
Yeah, there are a lot of unwritten rules in strength and conditioning, and being in strength and conditioning, you get access to these athletes and these coaches that the general public doesn't get.
Right.
And with that access comes a certain type of professionalism and maturity that maybe you're not going to see upheld in a normal setting with your general population people. So things like asking for autographs or whatever it may be, it's really, I've never even, that thought has never even crossed my mind, just because I'm like, I want to treat this person like a normal person. Right. The thought has always been like, act like you've been there before. So if it's the first time that you're meeting Dabo Sweeney, don't make it seem like it's the first time that you're Dabo. You know, he's a human, and like treat him as such. And so I actually had, you know, I've had my fangirl moments where I'm like, holy cow, this person's here right now. I'm like super excited. And internally I'm like, oh geez. But externally I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. And I just want them to feel like they can be themselves around me, because I know many times they probably are not able to be.
I mean, I don't want that to sound naive, but like my brother's a professor at Arizona State, and he teaches a lot of like intro psych courses and things. So his June, July is a lot of incoming freshmen, soccer players, football players, and whatnot. And I always ask him, I'm like, he's like, man, like I don't care. Like they're students. Like, yeah, sure, they're here on scholarship and stuff, but they got to pass intro to psych. So I'm the one that's like tasked with doing that. But he's so like nonchalant about it. I'm like, yeah, but you were at Penn State, like now you're at Arizona State, like higher, I don't know. I just think it's cool. Like I don't know. I just think it's something that's really interesting.
It's definitely cool. And I think because I try to play the cool cards so often, I miss out on these cool opportunities to like get someone's autograph. I'm a diehard Chicago Bears fan. Like I'm Chicago, absolutely love the team. When I was at Kentucky, I had the opportunity to train with a very, very well-known Chicago Bears player. And in my head, I'm like, this is a great opportunity. Get a picture, get an autograph. He's here for a workout. And just want to be available to observe and help in any way that I can. And I don't want to treat him like anyone else would treat him. And so I'm like, dang, I missed on the opportunity to get like an autograph from a Hall of Fame level guy, but also got the opportunity to train with him, which was invaluable. So, I mean, there's trade-offs.
Right. Well, not like I had an opportunity when I first started coaching. I took a couple of my college athletes to Ashland, Ohio, where Judd Logan was the head throwing coach there, and he went to 4 Olympic Games in the hammer, and he had a training group there. So I emailed him, and I was like, he's never going to email me back. So he's like, yeah, sure, come on out. So Martin Luther King Day of 2005, we drove out there a couple hours from our campus, and there's 2 Olympians training there, and a whole bunch of other like world championship participants. And I walk in this field house, and I'm like, I just watched them on TV in the 2004 Olympics, and like they're gonna let us train. And that was like my first like fan out moment. But then after a while, you kind of get accustomed to like, oh yeah, they went to the 2008 Olympics, they were at the 12 Olympics, they were at the 16 Olympics, and it's just like it's like whatever. But I don't know if I might fail at a D1 school then if I get that, if I was in that situation. But so I was gonna ask, and I don't know how. I don't want this to sound weird or anything. So how do you get acknowledged nationally as being the assistant strength and conditioning coach of the year? Like how does that work, if you don't mind me asking?
The process that I understand is that people get nominated to begin with. Obviously you don't nominate yourself. So someone else nominated me.
Right.
I finally found out who it was. So shout out to one of the professors at Kentucky. But you get nominated to start. And then once you get nominated, you get notified that you were nominated. And there's an entire rubric that the NSCA sends And it has to do with your certifications, your involvement at the national level with the NSCA. It has to do with your athletic involvement. So the team you're working with, their level of wins, like, do they go to the NCAA tournament,
Sure.
win their conference, level of academic scholarship athletes. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. All these different criteria go into it. And it's also stuff like talking on podcasts or writing, articles, or just things that make you relevant and stay involved. So you fill out all of that. Once you fill that out, then the information goes to a task force. And I have to be points driven. I don't remember exactly how it's done, but the task force gets given X amount of nominees, and then the task force is what votes based on, you submit your resume, you submit your points, and then I think there was one more thing that you submit. It might be like a letter to the task force,
Sure.
Expressing your interest in what this award would mean. So after they go through all of that, they vote. And so I didn't know that was the process to it. So it was explained to me. And from what I understand, basically that's how you're able to get the national acknowledgement. And from that, obviously the award came, and that was awesome. Like, I was super shocked. I didn't expect that at all, but I was so intrigued by the process. I reached to the NSCA and I was like, how do I get to be on this task force? Like, I want to have a voice and have a hand in it. And so I get to be on it too, because I can't.
Sure.
I can't win the assistant coach of the year award again. So I get to be part of the task force that gets to vote in the future, because I just want to be involved in the next generation of coaches and, do my part beyond just counting the sets and reps for the athletes.
That is amazing. Like, I mean, I didn't know how delicate the process. I mean, maybe that's not the best word, but like how convoluted that sounds. Yeah, right. I mean, to get all of that different stuff. I mean, in track, it's usually whoever has the most athletes in a region going to nationals is the coach who gets the award, regardless of everything else that you suggested there. I should mention that to D3 track and start divvying up this award every once in a while, as opposed to just giving it to the same coach that I compete against all the time. But no, he's a great guy, but we just competed against his group at Brockport, and he just steamrolls everybody. And it's just so cool to watch it, because like, from my perspective, it's like these kids have no idea what they're like going through right now. Like, how many are ranked in the top 10 in the country? They're all going to go to nationals. And I don't know, it's just really interesting. But like, similar to that, and maybe this will be the last question, like, do your athletes that you work with, you receive this award, this high distinction, this high honor, do they realize like what they're going through? Like, 4 years goes fast. Maybe some are going to take a COVID 5th year, or maybe a 6th year, depending on what happens. Like, the athletes that you work with, do they get like, wow, like, what a great honor this is, like, it goes so fast, like, or is it like, do you ever have those like aside conversations of like, hey, you know what, you kind of need to get it together here, like, or I don't know. I just, working with D3 athletes, it's, they come to school because they enjoy the majors, or it's close to home, or it's just far enough away, like you mentioned, that mom or dad aren't going to show up. But the athletes that you work with, it's just a little different, right? Like, they're coming from all over the country to, maybe win an SEC championship or a national championship now. Like, do you think that they get it sometimes, or maybe they don't?
Yeah, I think you find a spectrum of that stuff. So I think you get athletes that really understand their purpose and their intention behind being here. And then you get some of those ones that you're like, can you just get your act together? Like, you have all the potential in the world, and you are just really are not utilizing. So I always try to, one of the reasons why I work in the college setting is because I understand how memorable and impactful this time of their lives is and will be moving forward. So I'm always super excited to just potentially be part of a memory or have a hand in their success. And that's why I work at the level that I do. And I think like if you go by the days go slow, but the years go fast kind of process, you know, I think that helps really kind of put things into perspective. So when the athletes day to day are like, you know, this is tough, or we had a tough practice, or I'm tired, or whatever. And I'm, yeah, but like, you're going to miss this when you're done. So I want you to enjoy every moment, because I can pull from my own athletic experience and be like, when I was in the, you know, day to day of gymnastics and my shoulder and my hip was doing this. And it's very easy to complain and take it for granted. But now I'm like, wow, I miss being able to throw on a pair of grips and swing on a bar. Like, I try to bring that stuff up to them to, again, kind of remind them, like, be where your feet are, enjoy the moment. It's going to go by quickly. And then you're out in the real world, or you're out on the professional setting, and it's going to be very different for you. So I really do try to have them understand the gravity of which the situation is that we are in, and I want them to enjoy it and absolutely love it. But I also want them to realize this is not forever.
Right.
To enjoy it while you're in it. And I don't like the complaining. I try to like stop that a lot. I'm like, yeah, we're done. Moving on. I don't want to hear about this anymore. Go do it.
Right. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time twice to get
no problem.
This wrapped up. You know, I really appreciate it. And I mean, I think your athletes at Tennessee, wow, like what an awesome person that they're going to get to work with now moving forward. That's so cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Well, have a great rest of your season. I guess, I mean, the semester's over. I mean, our semester's over this week. So I don't know, your kids are probably graduating in a couple of weeks also, right?
We are at a close here soon. I think this might be next week. Soccer, obviously, their fall sport, so they're done. But tennis is selection show tomorrow night. So we will see where they go.
So you might be busy.
Could be.
Continuing. Well, that's good. Hopefully you are. You know, right? Rather than training for Olympic weightlifting and things. But Ryan, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.
Thank you.